Good evening, everybody. It's very good to be here. Very glad to have the opportunity to partner with CaPRI on this. Christian Aid is the development agency of the Protestant churches of the UK and Ireland. And we have been working in Jamaica for more than 15 years, but we've only just opened an office here. Most of what we do is community development work in Jamaica, but in the UK, we actually do a lot of lobbying at government level and in partnership with both organizations in the north as well as partner organizations in the south. We are not an implementing agency. We work through local experts, local non-governmental organizations, local partners, people like yourselves who are interested and are active in trying to make change in their communities and in their countries. In fact, Christian Aid's essential purpose is to expose the scandal of poverty, to help in practical ways to root it out from the world, and to challenge and change the systems that favor the rich and powerful over the poor and marginalized. And now that's a mouthful, but I think it speaks to why we're actually here today and why we would support research such as this and a public forum such as this. In order to make changes, in order to have widespread public support and public engagement in issues such as debt, which, as Kim said, people don't usually take on as something that affects them personally. We have to make sure that people are informed and educated, that people are aware that, yes, they do have a role to play and what that role is. And in order for that to happen, they have to have information. And as Kim pointed out, this is evidence-based research. This is not just emotion. So when Christian Aid had the opportunity to partner, this was something that we took very seriously. And I think CaPRI is one of the organizations that has a commitment to ensuring that we do have this public debate. And that is something that we are definitely very, very happy to be participating with. So thank you very much.
I would like to go back to April during the budget discussion in which Minister of Finance, Minister Shaw, indicated the debt issue or the debt in the context of Jamaica is an albatross that hangs around the neck of every Jamaican citizen. And in that context, I would like to make 3 or 4 points. One is, how do we place debt, or I would turn it around. How do we place development at the center of the debt debate in Jamaica, so that at the end of the day, we do not talk about only how do we service the debt, but how do we serve the people. And that's my first point. The second point I would talk about is, whenever we talked about debt burden, debt overhang, we heard about the issue of moral hazard. I think for some of you who are not familiar with the term, moral hazard refers to the type of risk that the person will take if he or she knows that eventually he or she will be bailed out eventually by someone else. That argument was turned on its head in the context of the debt relief in the 80s in Latin America, as well as in the context of the highly indebted poor country debt relief initiatives, the HIPIC in Africa. And in fact, if there is a moral hazard issue, and if there's any moral issue to be speak of, HIPIC was supported by a coalition of churches, and as Kim Marie refers to, it was called the Jubilee 2000. The third point I would mention is, what can UNDP contribute in the context of the debt issue in Jamaica? We have extended in our discussion with government that we will be willing to support any follow-up actions on the debt sustainability analysis that is currently being undertaken by the government. The idea of having a debt sustainability analysis is to calibrate the capacity of carrying your debt while balancing the needs for growth and development. And that's a very critical point. And the idea of the moral hazard is that most of the countries, or not all of the countries that are indebted, are not asking for a write-off or cancellation. What we are asking for is some fiscal space so that we can balance our obligations in terms of the debt, but also in our obligations for our development and social growth. Second thing that UNDP has tabled is our support to undertake a series of public expenditure reviews, especially in the health and education sector, so that the findings of those reviews could inform the budget debate, so that once we can calibrate what we can afford to pay on the debt service, then we do have an informed basis to guide the allocation or reallocation of our budget toward the social services. In this context, we also have suggested, given the debt composition of Jamaica, which is very much high on the domestic creditors, that perhaps we could bring the domestic creditors around the table, and I would call that the Kingston Club, to contrast it with the Paris Club, where debtor would go when they have to discuss about sovereign debt, or the London Club when we talked about commercial debt. Last thing that we would like to table for support is a national or a regional advocacy platform for debt relief for middle-income countries. Because I think whereas there has been a large attention focused on developing countries, I think we're missing very much the issue or the struggle of middle-income countries with a high debt overhang. Let me conclude by saying that, going back to the question of moral hazard, and I would say that there is a hazard, and there is a national hazard, if we let the debt become an impediment to development. Thank you.